I want to welcome everybody to another kind of informal gathering about a community conversation. My name is Ginny Myrick. I am the president and CEO of the Cathedral District-JAX, which is the nonprofit that is redeveloping 36 blocks around the northeast quadrant of downtown. And right here where we're sitting is St. John's Cathedral. It's the highest point in downtown. It's called Billy Goat Hill. So there are several women in our community that are my professional buddies and friends, some that I particularly call the thought leaders, and Kay is one of those. Kay Ehas is the head of Groundwork Jacksonville, and there are several names for what she does. One is the building the Emerald Trail. The other is Groundworks Jacksonville. So it may have different meaning to different people. I want to tell you a little bit about Kay. Get my notes here quick. My friend. Be short. She says be short. Just because you're short, no. She joined Groundworks Jacksonville in 2017, and her first project was to develop a master plan for building the Emerald Trail. That was adopted by the city. And about a third of a mile of the trail is about to open. It's called La Villa Links, and will open at the end of this year. She has 15 years of experience in local government. She was the chief executive officer for the property appraiser, so if you want to know anything important, you can come talk to her. She is also, I believe you led the research for the DuPont group for Who Owns Downtown, which is really interesting. You can get that online from DuPont as to who really owns all of downtown. She has served on the board of RAP, Riverside Avondale Preservation, for many years, has been the president for 3 years. And actually, she was there in the presidency role when they started the Riverside Arts Market, RAM. So Kay comes to us, came to Jacksonville as a volunteer in Service to America, VISTA. Remember VISTA? They used to send these young, talented people around. That's how she came to Jacksonville. And she worked with public housing tenant associations and low-income senior groups. So you'll hear today what the Emerald Trail is all about. You will hear that it is a conglomeration of not just redoing waterways that have been in bad shape, but it's a connection to the neighborhood, which is the key to all of it. She has her master's in communications from the University of Florida and a bachelor's in social welfare. So, Kay, I'd like you to start by just a little bit about the big picture of what is the Emerald Trail and what you think the time frame is, and touch a little bit on where is the money coming from to do this project.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. So the Emerald Trail is a 30-mile trail and linear park system that's connecting 14 urban neighborhoods. And it includes the ecological restoration of, am I supposed to be looking at you?
No,
okay.
Can look right to that.
And it includes the ecological restoration of 2 urban creeks, McCoy's Creek and Hogan's Creek, which will be part of the Emerald Trail. So we developed the Emerald Trail Master Plan in 2019. It was adopted by the City Council in March of 2019. And we wanted it to be codified so that we wouldn't have to be arguing about design standards and routes. Not that we don't adjust those, because we've learned to improve design standards as we started designing the first trail segment. But our timeline was 10 years, to get it done in 10 years. And we did that because if you're paying attention, those folks that pay more attention always will say Jacksonville is a city of plans that sit on the shelf and nothing ever gets done. And so it was really important for us that folks believe that we were actually going to do it. And so within 4 years, 40% of the project is in either design, under construction, or constructed. 40% in 4 years. So I think if we can keep going, we can actually meet our 2029 goal, or at least 2030. The only thing that wouldn't possibly be done is the complete construction of Hogan's Creek. You know, urban creeks are expensive, and this one's very, very complicated. So, what was the other question?
Tell us where the money's coming from.
Oh. So at the end of the day, we believe it's about a $490 million project. we've already secured $268 million. So far, we've contributed $23 million to the project. The city's contributed $154 million. So that's 13% groundwork, 87% city. But we also recently, the trail, not groundwork, unfortunately, is getting $132 million in local gas tax dollars to get the next 5 segments done. And so our goal is to raise 10% of the money privately and 90% public dollars. And if you look at other trail cities around the country, every single one has a private nonprofit partner, and every single one has private dollars in the project, whether it's 13% or more than 50%. And so we would be the lowest at 10% private dollars. So I think it's a really good deal for the private sector. And why that's important is because we've always seen this project as a community project. At the end of the day, it's going to be a city park, but it needs to be a community project that we all feel like we had a say in developing, that we helped develop, that belongs to us, and we all want to take care of it. And that's why it's important to bring private dollars to the project. It also, private dollars, I mean, money talks, you guys, right? So private dollars allows us to lead the project. That's really what convinced the city to do it, because we were bringing money. The other reason the city agreed to it is because they don't have capacity, right? They don't have human resource capacity to fully focus on a project like this, which it needs. Because we want it to be designed as a nationally renowned trail system, not some mediocre thing. Like, we deserve world-class amenities. And that's why it's important that we're leading it and not the city.
So it is really a linear park that is, there's a handout going around. Susan, did you pass those out? No? Oh, you got them. So that tells you where it's going, and the dotted lines are under design and the solid lines are not. How does that work?
No, so I'm sorry I don't have the most current map. Originally, the dotted green lines were the 20 new miles that we had to design and construct. The solid green lines are the Riverwalk that was done and the S-Line Rail Trail, which the city did in the early 2000s. But other than that, everything's everything's being designed.
So what is hard to comprehend when we talk about the Emerald Necklace, and many mayors have talked about the Emerald Necklace and how we should do this in Jacksonville. It's easier if you try to piece it together a little bit to understand it. For instance, in the Cathedral District, the eastern boundary of the Cathedral District is Hogan's Creek, within 2 blocks from here, two and a half blocks, walking east of this building. So a lot of people don't even know it's there. If you've ever been behind Maxwell House Coffee, you'll see Hogan's Creek. And it goes under a lot of parking lots when it gets up near UF Health. You want to talk about daylighting a little bit?
Yeah. So I'm gonna share how we came to be doing Hogan's Creek, because again, I think it's going to tell you how important our nonprofit is to the project. So maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I was getting concerned that there's a lot happening downtown, especially around the creek. And if we didn't start designing it, we would lose the win-win opportunities, right? Because we look for, you can't restore a creek. Well, I mean, you can, but if you're not solving the problems, whether it be flooding or improved water quality or habitat, then you're wasting your money. And so you need to be able to design it in a way that's going to work for both the creek and create win-wins for folks that own property around it as well. So we went to the city and said, we'd like to design the creek, and they said no. So I always think about, okay, how am I going to get to a yes? And so we went and got a grant from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, and then I went back to the city and said, we have a grant, so we're ready to do it. And they said, okay. Money talks, you guys. It keeps coming back to that, right? And so we did the concept plan. It was probably we finished it over a year ago or a year and a half ago. And what I learned working on the McCoy's Creek project with the city is that the more Groundwork can control the whole design process, the better it will be in terms of in terms of keeping the project moving, not getting caught up in the politics, all that sort of thing. And so the city, because the granting agency said that we would be the better applicant over the city agreed that we would apply for grants to get the 100% design done. And we have secured $8.6 million to do that, both from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation and NOAA, National Oceanic Atmospheric Agency. And what I love about the NOAA grant is that it also gives us funds to pay residents to participate in the projects. And I do want to talk about community engagement at some point. But here's the other thing. The creek, it doesn't have any room, right? That's why it floods. There's no room. And so Maxwell House is a problem. That highway is a problem. So it's challenging near the mouth, and we have to figure that out, and we may have to use some bulkheads. But the idea is to acquire vacant private land to give the creek more floodplain, so it has room. It's buried underneath the Arlington Expressway in a culvert. What our hydrology modeling showed is once you daylight the creek, expose it, it reduces flooding almost 3 feet upstream. So you can't bury creeks without there being a flooding issue upstream, always. It's the same thing with UF Health. It's buried under their parking lots. When it rains, their cars float away in those parking lots. And so, the Department of Transportation did not have, so we need to take that culvert and make a bridge so we can open up the creek. It wasn't in their work plan. They didn't have any money. And if you know anything about bureaucracies, the higher you go, the worse it gets. They're like, well, we don't have any money. So in our NOAA grant, we got money that they'll be able to do the planning, design, and engineering study now. And then I've already talked to NOAA about applying for another grant, $4 million, for them to take that design to 100%. Because again, our goal is always, how are we going to get it done, right? All things are possible is my philosophy. All things are possible. And so my goal is that bridge is designed by the time our creek is designed, so that that's not holding up the project. And then it can be under construction while we are doing the mouth of the creek in terms of constructing it. Because you start in the mouth. The city didn't do that with McCoy's. You start at the mouth and you work your way up to the headwaters. And UF Health has been on board with this project from the very beginning and want the trail to be part of their campus, right, for both their patients, the community. And so they're great partners in that regard.
There's a component to this other than just restoring the beautiful waterways. It has to do with the community that are all along those waterways. And you could imagine, if you think about 50 years ago, that people did live on what's called the uplands of these waters. And in many cases, through a wonderful display that we had here at St. John's, they spoke about redlining, which when zoning came in place, you ended up with mostly very poor neighborhoods all along these creeks. So a big part of what Kay does is community engagement, which a lot of people have no idea that this project is all about. I think it almost is like 75% community engagement, and the rest of it, the 25%, is fixing the little tributaries. But why don't you talk just a little bit about the neighborhoods, and then if you can, what happened on the Atlanta Beltway.
Okay. So everything we do with community input, because these are their neighborhoods we're going through. And my background when I first started to get involved was as a neighborhood advocate for my neighborhood, Riverside Avondale. And so that's kind of where I come from. People need to have a say in their neighborhood. And if you look at where we're going, it's mostly historic African American communities that public infrastructure projects harmed. They didn't help, whether it's the highways, which took away some neighborhoods wholesale. Where UF Health is now today was the Sugar Hill neighborhood, which was an upper middle class black neighborhood. So it's like negative things have always happened to these communities. So when we pulled together the steering committee to do the Emerald Trail Master Plan, we had neighborhood representatives on that steering committee. And the La Villa Link segment, which is the first one we're doing, which is number 1 on the map, ribbon cutting is November 7th, by the way. The mayor's already booked. We're going to have a big party. that segment wasn't in the initial master plan draft, but was added because Durkeeville and Newtown residents said they wanted a direct connection to downtown. So I love the fact that it's our first one totally envisioned by residents that were on that task force and wouldn't be happening if they weren't at that table. And so we started that way, and we continue that way. So when we do creek projects, we form a task force that have city folks on it, the river keeper, so environmental organizations, city folks, JEA, property owners like UF Health, but also residents. And for McCoy's Creek, we're keeping that task force together even after construction to make sure everything is working like it's supposed to work. And so I'm just going to give you an example of what we've done with the McCoy's Creek neighborhoods, because that's where we've been the longest. It was our first design project. So here's what the city was going to do. So the creek starts, at the river, heads west through the Brooklyn neighborhood, goes west of I-95, Mixontown, Lackawanna. And Mixontown and Lackawanna have kind of branded themselves North Riverside. And so Mixontown was historically black, Lackawanna was historically white. It's now all majority black, very poor community. So what we heard from them in the beginning was, we want to learn how to be better mentors and leaders. So with their help and through focus groups, we developed a leadership training program through environmental stewardship training, and it's intergenerational with both youth and adults. And so they're in the classroom learning about the environment and creeks and flora and fauna, but then one day a month they're doing field trips to see how other folks are doing it, or they're doing creek cleanups. And it's a way to get them to, number one, be informed and start really taking some, ownership in what they're doing. Well, what happened with the Atlanta Beltline is that a lot of people got displaced in the beginning. And I didn't realize before I took this job that improving green infrastructure can lead to displacement, which is the opposite of what Groundwork Jacksonville is all about. Our goal is that long-term residents remain and prosper from what we're doing collectively. Again, remain and prosper. So they started voicing their concerns about displacement. We had that concern. So we worked with them to develop a 10-year neighborhood vision. There's 7 components of that. They prioritized 4: housing, history and culture, economic opportunities, and environmental stewardship. And we worked with them again. Our goal is that they lead. We're just helping them. They lead. And so we now have a home repair program. They determine the eligibility criteria, the neighborhood. They have agreements with a case manager and a construction manager. We're their fiscal sponsor. So we raise the money, we pay the bills. Our goal. So they have a community development corporation that has been only operating as a neighborhood organization. They have no paid staff. They just didn't have the wherewithal, the capacity to really be a community development corporation. So what we've seen over the time we've been working with them, now remember, we're there. Like, we attend monthly meetings of every single neighborhood within our geographic area, whether or not we have a project going on. So it's all about developing relationships and keeping those and working over time. So since we've been working with them, they have added to their board. We brought Jacksonville in, who brought their family wealth creation tools. So for them to clear title to property, because there's a lot of heirs property, to pay back taxes. And so this year, we're going to work with them to start going through the nonprofit board training. And one of our NOAA grants has given us money to give to them to hire an executive director and pay their salary for 2 years. So we're always looking at so we're doing trail building and community building at the end of the day. And another goal that we have is that how can we get grants to give to neighborhoods to activate the trail in their neighborhood, right? Again, so it's a community thing. It's not just us or the city doing that programming. I'm talking a lot.
That's good. That's what we want you to do. So we have maybe time for a few questions. If you have any questions, just raise your hand, and then Nancy will run around with a microphone to pick up your voice, because we've got people online watching us.
My name is Ken Horton, and I just got back from Europe, and all of the major cities in Europe have completely banned automobiles in their city centers and have the most beautiful walking areas that attracts people from all over the city to come into those places. Is there anything that's connected with the Emerald Trail? I see it looks like a dotted line up maybe Julia Street or Hogan Street, okay. But it's full of cars all the time. So I was just wondering if there's something that is connected with the Emerald Trail for that.
So segment number 2 is Hogan Street. So right now it's a 2-lane, one-way road from the river to FSCJ, sort of. We're taking one of those travel lanes, and it's going to be a 2-way cycle track with pedestrians next to it. There is some interest in closing it altogether to vehicles. I just don't know that the city is there yet. But we are designing parts of it that they could do that anytime, right? We're going to close this area down. It's where all of the restaurants and stuff will be. So we formed a stakeholder group of property owners along Hogan Street because you have a lot of developers, younger developers who bought historic buildings and are doing renovations, which is what you want, and adding apartments. And so they've really been, the first meeting we had, they wanted to take it further than even we did, which is incredibly exciting to me, right? To have people pushing the envelope even more than we are. So I don't know that that's going to happen now, but it may happen one day, right? When people see the potential.
The difference between Jacksonville and where you've just come from is density. You have to have enough people that makes a neighborhood a neighborhood. That's one of the goals of Cathedral District-JAX. And when you see beautiful European cities, think about that next time you think it. You're there. When you walk on the street, there's no cars because it's full of people that are there. So unless you've got a project where you have high density with renters or property owners, you're not going to be able to close the street to car traffic because everybody else is driving through. So it's a real conundrum. You have another question?
But they're also ahead of us, right? Like they put their highways around cities, not through cities. I hate highways, you guys. And we're so car centric here, right? So we're behind.
Okay, this is Gil Wright. I hope you don't mind if we ask Ginny to talk about the project that she's been working on with others for 5-10 years now around the park system around the cathedral. You?
Cathedral District-JAX? Mm-hmm.
If I said that correctly.
Let me just give you just a kind of a high-level overview. We formed in 2016. We are a nonprofit governed by an 18-member board of directors. It is one of the 6 or 7 nonprofits that this church has spawned in the community. The church does not financially support all these nonprofits, and they are ones that you know very, very familiar. Episcopal High School is one. Aging True, that owns the 3 big towers for seniors, is another one. The Cathedral Arts Project is another one. Ours is the newest, the baby of the group, and our 18-member board is primarily made up of people who are finance, real estate, legal, or planners. We have one great architect on the board. And what we're about the business of doing is identifying property that can be assembled, we can then find a developer to partner with us, and we buy the property usually. We buy the property first, then we find a developer who can go vertical with it. And our goal is to build 2,500 units in the Cathedral District, and people say to me all the time, well, when? And I said, as fast as we can. As fast as we can. So right next door, you'll see there's a big construction project going on. That is 120 units with some underground parking. 2 blocks that way is one that's been finished in May called Ashley Square, which we didn't have a whole lot to do with the project itself. It was starting to be online when we started looking at property. So the 120 units there, 120 units here. We have 4 projects on the, what I call in the pipeline. They are mostly affordable housing. One's another 120 unit, which I can't tell you where it is yet because it's not been signed, sealed, and delivered. And another one is a huge parcel that is 2 acres. It's the largest property in the Cathedral District, which will be a mix of residential and commercial, potentially a grocery store. So it's long, slogging work that is, we say because we have a master plan, like Kay has a master plan, and without a master plan, you really are just guessing. And our master plan shows you exactly where the residential should go, where the commercial should be, and where more parks should be, 2-waying streets, which is extremely important. So the master plan guides everything. And the city adopted our master plan. So if somebody wants to buy a piece of land over here and put a bowling alley in, they can't do it. The city has the teeth behind our master plan, just like they have with yours. And that's the key to it. We like to say we are fact-driven because of the master plan, very strategic, and that we're very patient. And boy, have I developed the patience in this project because I tend to be an immediate person. And I tell you, Job has nothing on me. So it takes a long time. This project back here, we bought it in 2019, and in 2023 they started construction. So when you get a capital stack that is composed of private money, state money, city money, it takes a long time to get there. That's why this is so amazing. What Kay is doing is so amazing because she gets globs of large sums of money, and I get, $600,000 here, and I have to beg steel for, another $500,000 over there. But when you deal with government in a public-private project of any sort, this one particularly, you have volunteer groups who are making decisions. Those groups, like the city council, meet 1 time a month. If they don't have a quorum, I can't do it this month. We'll have to do it next month. So before you know it, it's month after month after month, and you've got 6 months involved, and you haven't done a darn thing. So it is very frustrating, and I'm sure you're frustrated sometimes too by the lack of sense of urgency with government as it comes. But you can't do it without it. They have to be your partner.
Can I just make a couple of comments about the health in terms of how this project's going to influence it? For every dollar spent on trails, medical costs are reduced by $3. That's amazing, right? And then what studies have found is the people who use it the most to recreate are the folks that live right there. And when you think about where it's going, it's the part of town that has the highest health risks. The other thing is that every 10 minutes spent in nature reduces our stress levels, and it's cumulative. So I don't know about you, but I need to be spending a whole lot more time in nature, which is what we're bringing. We're bringing nature.
We have time for 1 or 2 more questions.
Riverfront Parks Now was formed 3 years ago because we care about downtown so much, and we've looked around at cities all over the country and the world and found that having an active riverfront park system along the waterway downtown is one of the most economic and social and healthy thing that a city can do. And it's being shown all over Florida, certainly. And we were unique in that our city had a great deal of publicly owned land across our North Bank Riverwalk, where the landing was and where the city hall was, and it keeps going down to Metropolitan Park. And that right now is being turned into a park system. And Riverfront Parks Now feels very strongly that public land should be used by the public, and there may be the apartments can be built behind. And the ratio, the ROI, is astonishingly high when you do that. So how does the Emerald Trail work in with the Riverfront Park system on the North Bank?
So the Emerald Trail is connecting 4 places to the Riverwalk at Ram, McCoy's Creek, Hogan's Street, Hogan's Creek, and then also, depending on how it works, like around A. Philip Randolph. And I think we need to figure out how to connect to, what's that park? The big one? No. Metropolitan, yeah. Right, yes. So basically, it'll connect to the Riverwalk.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited about the progress and just kind of understanding the current state of the work that you've done. And I'm a runner, and so sometimes we'll meet at Tabula Rasa and run over by the McCoy's Creek, and you can see over the last several years tremendous progress being made on that construction. And then I've been a longtime fan of the Hogan's Creek rehabilitation because it's, you know, Henry Clutho was an important architect in our history, and that area, I work for the Corps of Engineers. We tried to find authority for it in 2009. So you know, at that time, I was a younger employee and walked the whole creek. And some of the challenges we had with getting the program off the ground that you have been able to take and find different grants. And I'm glad for the new authorities and all the things that are going to be able to help that. And my husband and I we started a bicycle recycling program, which is out of ZenCog now, and they have bike fix up over at Tabula Rasa. But this isn't a shameless plug, but it's just to say that connection with transportation for people that don't have transportation in areas where they can get to work and back helps people to be self-sustainable. So that'll be a tremendous benefit of this project. And just to see people walking on the trail, I think there's a new trail near McCoy's Creek, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I'm already seeing people walking on it. And living in Avondale Riverside, it's, you know, I can see that it will only improve, you know, the connections between these neighborhoods, make them more beautiful, make them more accessible for all of us. So I just applaud the efforts. And then my question is, how can we get more involved? Thank you.
Well, Gil Wright is a monthly donor. So you could think about that. So we have a membership program that's $120 or $240 a year that you can do monthly. We have a Trailblazer program, which are annual leadership donors. It starts at $1,500 a year. So I think if you can give financially, you know, we're a nonprofit. Money is always important to us. I would say talking about the project, right? Getting more and more people to know about it, building more and more support. If you're excited, other people might be excited. So whenever you see an elected official say, oh my God, we're so excited about that Emerald Trail program, and thank you for funding it. So I think that, right? And then we're going through a couple of staffing issues, but we're going to start building up our volunteer program so that like corporations want to do events and all that sort of thing. So I would say be an advocate, get to know more about it, think about being a donor or a member. You made me think of something, though. Now, what is it? Dang it.
Tell them how to become a member.
Go on our website. Go on our website. You can donate or become a member on our website. Groundworkjacksonville.org. Groundworkjacksonville.org.
Okay. And I think there's one more. Okay. Oh. We'll give him special attention.
Hi, thank you.
That's my husband.
We recently...
Move your microphone up there so we can hear you. Joel, move your microphone up.
It's not close enough? There we go. We recently announced last week that there will be the University of Florida School of Architecture will occupy our third floor in our Cathedral house, which adjoins this building. Their focus is on resilience and environmental impacts. So the city has been working on this for a while, and you are now dealing with flooding. How does your project and the Emerald Necklace dovetail with the work that's being done on resilience?
So everything we do increases resilience. Everything we do. So we are taking straightened, hardened creeks back to natural channels. And so when you do that, it reduces flooding. They grow stronger and more stable over time, so it reduces maintenance. So it greatly improves water quality, and it's habitat for fish and wildlife, right? Because residents want to be able to fish. They may not be able to eat it right away, but they want to be able to fish. And so everything we're doing increases resilience. Even our trail projects, we're adding tons of trees and green infrastructure. So because, again, it's all about stormwater runoff and improving water quality. So we look for those opportunities everywhere. We also have a watershed planning project going on, which is looking at the entire watershed of both creeks, so that at the end of it, it will tell us where and what type of green infrastructure to plant to help with resiliency throughout the whole watershed, not just the creeks. And we're working with 10 neighborhoods on that project, and we formed a watershed stakeholder group of residents, a technical advisory board of city folks, JEA, and they're going to be working together and then also helping us engage the greater community. Right now, we're doing neighborhood walks, so they can tell us what's changed in your neighborhood, where are you seeing flooding, what's going on, because they're the experts on their neighborhoods, not us. And we want them, at the end of the day, to have chosen the solutions they want in their neighborhood.
I want to give a plug to these continuation of these conversations. I think they're going to go through August. And a special thank you to Kay today, because she stood in for my other buddy, Cindy Funkhauser, who couldn't come. She had a family emergency. And Cindy will be back, I think, the middle of August to talk about the homeless situation in Jacksonville and bring with her, parked outside, their new rescue van that's been given to them. So it's going to be a controversial to a certain extent, but a very interesting conversations. And Kay, I want to thank you very much for coming here and on short notice and doing such a good job. So thank you.